I'm going to present my topic on defamiliarizing flash fiction as semantic pragmatic interpretation of Virginia Woolf's Haunted House. So this is my abstract with the keywords flash fiction, defamiliarization, semantics, pragmatics, world states. And about the author, Virginia Woolf was an astonishing prolific writer of novels, short fiction, essays, literary criticism, and drama. And by the end of 1930s, she established herself as one of the most revered intellectuals of the era. Her most prominent works include the novels Mrs. Dalloway, To the Lighthouse, and Orlando, and her essay A Room of One's Own, with the famous dictum, a woman must have money and a room of her own if she is to write fiction. Flash fiction belongs to a genre of a very short story ranging from 50 to 1500 words. It can be referred to as a minuscule narrative where the whole story is compressed and relies more on the art of implication rather than the statement. Now the introduction. So it can be also referred to as a hybrid style that mixes verse with narrative to form a story that captures a moment which is larger narrative sequence akin to a series of photographs, still photographs from a movie just like Joss's Epiphanies. There is no plot and the author sketches scenes of ambiguity in order to keep the readers tuned to each word. The readers are left to the imagination, which may lead to multiple re-meanings of foreclosure. So Virginia Woolf's A Haunted House can be placed under the categories of supernatural, occult, ghost stories where she is the omniscient narrator. So when we talk about the structure of a flash fiction, it has got 5 stages. In first stage, there is the exhibition of the characters and the general atmosphere. In the second, it deals with a conflict affecting the protagonist, which leads to the rising action. The rising action leads to complication in the plot and leads to climax in the third stage. In the fourth stage, the falling action shows that the climax is over and the story is heading towards the end. And lastly, the story comes to an end. This is my literature review, and I have tried to review literature on flash fiction, defamiliarization, semantics, and pragmatics. And my research gap is an overview of the literature review shows that there has been individual studies on flash fiction, defamiliarization, semantics, and pragmatics. This paper aims to interpret Virginia Woolf's A Haunted House from an interdisciplinary perspective. So this is my objective, is to defamiliarize flash fiction and unravel Virginia Woolf's Haunted House from the perspectives of semantics and pragmatics. This is my methodology. Theory of Defamiliarization by Victor Slavoski, Theory of Semantics, Theory of Communication Implication, Logical Theory by P.F. Strawson, close reading of the text, and APS Digest. So the concept of defamiliarization was propounded by Victor Slavoski, the Russian formalist, who used a literary device in which ordinary and familiar objects are made to look different in order to give a fresh perception to a literary piece. This is what differentiates between ordinary and poetic language, usage of language. Semantics is the study of meaning, the relation between linguistic expression and their meanings. Pragmatics is the study of context and how context can influence our understanding of the linguistic utterances. Theory of communication implication also deals with words which the speaker says and but considerably goes beyond what is said. The logical theory of Strawson is based on the logical appraisal of connected meanings. Theory of action, which is drawn from the logical theory, explains the basic knowledge of human behavior and what we plan to do and what results and impacts we hope to achieve. It is a sound analysis of the speech acts where actions are described. So defamiliarizing a haunted house. In A Haunted House, the author, Virginia Woolf, narrates her experience with a ghostly couple, long dead and who seem to haunt the house where she shares with her husband. Though the author cannot see them, she can hear soft whisperings and other noises as they search something in the background. At the end, the author can hear the word safe repeated several times and is awakened by the light of a silver lantern and finds that she possesses the treasure the ghosts were looking for. Now when we see these two quotes, in the first quote, The house is personified with the ghostly couple wandering inside, yet making safe for the author and her husband to stay safe, as nobody would harm them. In the quote 2, the last lines of the story ends in a twist, leaving the reader stimulated as they are inclined towards generating meaning to each word based on their own experience and perception. This is again followed by multiple re-meanings and foreclosure, as the treasure for the ghostly couple is the love shared by the author and her husband. The semantics window, an analysis of the speech acts, which is an important task of pragmatics, cannot be carried out without a semantic interpretation of the action discourse where actions are described. The meaning of the sentence depends on the context as well as on the act of communication. Semantics also deals with how the words and phrases are placed together to form sentential meanings. So the thematic sentences shown here can be considered as a part of sentence semantics. Multiple meanings can occur where active and passive sentence constructions are confronted, as well as answers to the questions what is communicated when the author formed and organized the message. In fact, in discourse semantics, the sequencing of events are influenced by the order in which the events occur. They can be termed as normal if the temporal and causal ordering corresponds to the linear ordering of the sentences. So in these two quotes, quote 1 and 2 shows a normal ordering of the sentences. So the identification of events is not only based on physical time and motion alone, but also on the conventional and cognitive units. Generally compound events where initial state is identical with the initial event and final state with the final event. Such a series is called continuous or otherwise discontinuous. So in quote 1, the series of events takes place and are continuous. In quote 2, the series of events take place with a description of elements of nature here, like the flame, wind, all these. So we can say that it is the series of events is discontinuous. So again, a series of events may consist of independent events. Some events may be casually related, leading to causes for the next event, or a subsequence of events, or some series of independent events may cause one event. That is, an event may have a single or a compound clause. In quote 1, the cause of the ghostly couple to leave the house was their death. And in the second quote, the pulse of the house says that it is safe for Woolf and her husband to stay in that house as no one is going to harm them. The treasure seems to be the love shared by the couple, the reason why the ghostly couple leaves the house forever. So, in this particular quote, there is no direct cause for any event. While describing the candle burning Stephen Steele, the author describes the elements of nature all independent of each other. So pragmatics in action, pragmatic studies how speech acts in natural language utterances and also provides conditions to make the utterances acceptable with respect to the communicative context. Pragmatics also determines the implied and literal meanings in the interpretation of the sentences. So according to Grice, context is important in determining the meanings of an utterance because context can be defined as elements that surround an utterance. The theory of action states that action and events are closely connected as it is an event which is brought about by any human being. So one basic concept of the theory is change, and this change might occur due to an operation between two possible world states or between possible worlds or world states or situations. So we can bring in the logical theory of Strawson that a difference in the proposition may be represented as difference on the state description. So one initial situation represented by W1 and initial time by T1. So Ti. So a change might lead to two sets of propositions, Wi, Ti ab initio and Wi, Ti plus 1 and an alternative possible word. So each time unit will be associated with two possible word states, one actual and another an alternative possible word. So if you take the quote 1, so the situation occurs at an actual word at a particular time, Witi. Thus, if at Witi we have the proposition that the door shunting Then at WITI plus 1, we might have the proposition a door not shunting or the door closed. So in code 2, again, a difference in the situation can be described as here and there as WITI, a set, and WITI plus 1. The change in the two events only seem to bring to our notice the existence and the disappearance of the closely coupled, one at the initial world state and another at an alternative world state. So we can deduce that an event has occurred or taken place or something has happened. So thus we can conclude that in a flash fiction, the readers can perceive the story from his or her own perspective. Through defamiliarization, the readers can scrutinize the peripheral world critically, the semantic and pragmatic interpretation of the text, then analyze the speech acts and find out what actions are and what are not, and what are the conditions for successful action and how these actions may constitute sequences of actions. So before I end my presentation, I wish to quote Virginia Woolf that life is not a series of gig lamps symmetrically arranged. Life is a luminous halo and semi-transparent envelope surrounding us from the beginning of consciousness to the end. So these are my books which I have referred, books and research papers which I have referred for my research work. And thank you for your patient listening.
So this is really interesting, mainly the defamiliarizing flash fiction and the case study of a haunted house. And we had got to know many things from your presentations. You tried to show us the semantics, the pragmatic aspect, as well as you talked about Grice,
communication implication.
Then
yes.
Then Austin, as well as I think that's
Strawson.
Yeah. So
P.S. Strawson. Actually, so it is like a similar like a theory by Edward Lawrence, the mathematician and meteorologist, that if there is if a butterfly flaps its wings in one part of the world, a tornado can happen in a different part of the world. So if an action takes place in this initial world, then we can have a different action taking place in an alternative possible world. This is what I tried to.
The thing you have discussed, so to say, let's say, and I think mainly you are from literature background.
No, sir, I'm from ELT. But I teach literature, I teach linguistics. I teach communicative English also in the university, Assam Royal Global University in Guwahati, Assam.
Oh, great.
So, yes, so
see, that's what I was thinking, like mainly the courses is taught, stylistics, discourse analysis and all.
Yes.
So might be also dealing with stylistic to some extent. See, the notion of defamiliarization, what you have, discussed, and that's what I was passionately, listening your people. So somewhere the data, what you have presented from that, work, Virginia Woolf, Haunted House. So, so the Russian author, he presents the whole model, so that of defamiliarization. So how intertextuality works, how cohesion is working there, and what kind of, let's say, not only intertextuality, defamiliarization in different levels of the grammar. So concept of defamiliarization in the different levels of the grammar, either in the phonetic level, in the morphological level, in the syntactic level. And also not only that, try to understand that also happens in the script level. You see that many authors, what they do, they try to get attention, and instead of, let's say, writing in the capital letter, they may write in the small letter. This is where the whole thing, so I want, or maybe at times on purpose, they make commit mistakes, grammatical mistakes, but it is not mistakes, because they try to kind of catch the attention of the audience or the readers. So, so my submission would be, maybe you can think about it, that how Virginia Woolf in the work, let's say a haunted house, so what kind of defamiliarization is going on in different levels of the grammar?
Okay, sir.
And mainly you are talking about semantics and pragmatics, and mainly the semantics and pragmatics part, in my understanding, the kind of theory what you are referring in general, the kind of theory you are referring, Geoffrey Leach. But Geoffrey Leach is a whole book on semantics.
Yes.
Yeah, so you talked about Austin, you talk about, let's say, Grice maxims. You talked about Grice, but where? So instead of here and there, let's say semantics and pragmatics, I think you focus a particular model and try to elaborate that or explore that in great detail. So that would be really interesting, So this is my quick kind of comment.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. I'm still working on the paper. I'll put stress on whatever you have suggested. Thank you for your valuable suggestions, sir.